Hi, Miss Leonard.
Hello.
How you doing?
Wonderful.
Good. I had an opportunity to stop by your room yesterday. Saw you had your small groups up and going. I know you had talked a lot about how you were going to use that data from DE to form your group. So I saw kids in the text. I saw kids on Achieve 3000. Saw kids working with you. So it definitely looks like they're up and going. How's that working for you?
All is well.
Good. Good. What do you think the impact is from that small group?
We get to do multiple skills based off of need. So I get an opportunity to work with, a small group on what they need while other kids are addressing their needs at the same time. So it's working well.
Okay. Well, keep pushing. I like that. Now, I was in your classroom Wednesday. I got to see you introduce Unit 2, Lesson 1, focusing on colonial times, their different trades in colonial times. What did you want to accomplish from that lesson?
It was just a introduction to the different trades that the kids would be discussing throughout this unit. So basically to provide some background knowledge for them, just to make the flow of the upcoming lessons a little bit easier.
Okay.
And give them a context to what we were discussing on the jobs we would be discussing.
I noticed that from lessons prior, they had been introduced to a wheelwright. And in this particular lesson, it showed them various jobs, and they were to do some inferring. How were you able to check for understanding to make sure that they really accomplished what you set out for them to achieve?
Well, while they were working, they had to complete the graphic organizer with their group. So the first part, they had to do a I wonder, and they did that independently. So they took a minute to look at the picture and just write, not wonder, what they noticed. And then they wrote down what they noticed in the picture, just very obvious things that they saw in the picture. And then they had to share it with their group to make an inference as to what the job was. Based off of what they saw in the picture. So in doing that, I just rotated around to the different groups and was listening to what the kids were saying to help get them on track. If they because it was one group in particular, they kind of made this elaborate story about each job, and then they had to be brought back in and say, it's just what do you think that job is based off of the pictures, based off of the name of the job. So basically with that, just checking in with the kids and then looking at their graphic organizer, because at the end, I think you were still in the room at the end, the end of the slides, I went and I just asked them to share out a couple. Just to clarify, because the ones that they shared out were ones that kids were just going off on. So I just wanted to bring them all in to kind of help them out with those.
And I did notice that at the end you kind of wrapped back around. How do you think you could have maybe tailored that so that you didn't have to spend so much time? I heard you saying a lot of, you've got this whole big story, but I want you to hone in on making that inference. What could have been something that you've done just to kind of get that wraparound a little bit earlier than you got it?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't remember if I did one as an example. So maybe modeled one with them to give them an idea of exactly what I was looking for, and maybe just reiterate that I was looking for the job. And I guess sometimes it's a little bit challenging with that second group because I would have already done the lesson once. And I mean, they're different kids. So the flow of the first group, they were on where, that wasn't needed. So when I went in and say, and I, not to say the second group didn't do a good job, because I think they had good discussions. I just come in with the mindset of what we did in the first class, and I carry it over. And then when I get in there, it's kind of got to do it a little bit differently. So
and that's something that I really want us to focus on today, because you just hit the nail on the head. We've got to be able to look at those different blocks as two totally different blocks. Yes, we're presenting the same information, but just like you said, it's different kids. And where your first group may have been able to get it spot on, that second group, you did spend a whole lot of time restating you're looking specifically for the job, making that inference about the job. So our action step now is to really take a look at how we can look into upcoming lessons and design that I do and we do to address those errors. And that would be your modeling piece. That would be where you're able to show them specifically what you want so that you can check for understanding and move that pace on. So I definitely want us to take a look at the next lesson coming up, specifically lesson number 5. I know we talked about in planning. This actually has a reading component. They're gonna read the wheelwright story, and then when they get to lesson 6, we talked about that whole differentiation piece where the different groups have to complete that. So I want us to take a look at pretty much 5 and 6 and see where can we script in our plans, that modeling component, just to make sure that kids are getting that purpose for the lesson and accomplishing what you're looking for right then. So let's take a look at those triads in lesson 6 that go along with that article. All right, here they are. When you're teaching a piece of text and you are asking children to look for those specific details, when they've got to make those inferences, how are you structuring that for your students? How would you?
When we're reading a text and they have to make inferences about the text, a lot of times the inferences that we've discussed are around a question.
Okay.
So, we'll go back in the text and we'll talk about whatever the question is asking in regards to the inference that they'll need to make. So, off the top of my head, I don't recall just making inferences as we're reading, and I'm trying to think as I'm saying that. Like I said, a lot of times it always goes back to a question or stems from a question.
From a question. Well, now in this upcoming lesson from 6, they do have a question. What did the wheelwright make? So when we're looking at this piece of writing, where in this text could you actually go in and model so that when the kids get to this categorizing sheet, they'll know where exactly to find the tools for trade or the skills needed for trade or how people trade, how is that trade going to help people?
So when I read it, because what I'm working with my kids on is annotating the text. So when I went through, I kind of did like just little bullets. So I underlined details. I put a note, underline important facts. So I have those underlined, circle unknown words. And then I just put like little headings over each one. Made wheels, built and repaired carts. So just little notes to kind of help me go back and I know where I'm finding my information from.
All right, so let's practice that. I want you to practice how you're going to teach your children to go in and underline those details, circle the unknown words, and add in those headings. So I'm your student. Teach me.
I'm just trying to look at my notes.
Okay. Take a minute. Get your thoughts together.
Okay. So, I would have read through the text to model fluent reading and just to give them an opportunity because we talk about, they do it in this program, but we also talk about multiple reads of one text and why we do that. So we'll just read through, and then I have a note here, and I hope I'm following the lesson, but I have a note with the main idea. So on the top, we would have just identified the main idea for the entire text, and I wrote that on the top of the page.
Okay.
So after, I would just ask the kids, okay, we've read the text, the importance of the wheelwright, what is the main idea of this text? So what is it mostly about? So the note I have is wheelwrights played an important role in colonial America.
Okay.
So then we would break it down. So we would go paragraph by paragraph, if I'm not mistaken. We would go paragraph by paragraph. So what I would do, and like I did just coming out of my groups, just read through. I really didn't put any notes for the first paragraph. Let me see. I'm trying to see. Yeah. So I really didn't put any notes in the first paragraph for this particular text. I didn't start until the second paragraph down.
Okay.
And so what I would do is just read through the first paragraph.
Okay, let's do it. We're going to practice. I'm your student. I got my passage.
So after I've already read through it once. And then we talked about the main idea. We know the main idea is that they played an important role in colonial America. So I'll read the first paragraph. The cart was an important item for many people in colonial America. Wealthy colonists and shopkeepers used carts. Farmers especially depended on them. If you were a farmer in colonial America, you couldn't operate without a cart of some kind. Farmers used carts to collect and transport their produce. So we could take a minute in class and just talk about, okay, this one focuses on, or the paragraph focuses on how important a cart was in colonial America. And I guess that does tie back to why a wheelwright was important, because they made the wheels for the cart.
So do I know what a cart is? I'm a fourth grade student who knows what a Hummer is. I know what a Mercedes is, but do I know what a cart is?
It's my assumption you do.
Okay. Can we always go off of assumption? Because again, if this whole lesson is about this wheelwright, the purpose of the job of a wheelwright is to make wheels. Well, he's making wheels for this cart. So how are we going to be able to wrap back around that the kids know that the importance of a wheelwright is to make wheels for a cart?
Yeah. To be honest, when I read through it, like I said, just now I thought, of making that connection about why, that this is in the introduction to kind of set the framework, whatever, that, carts were important during this time, hence wheelwrights were important as well. But, yeah, the cart, I didn't think about the cart.
Think about the cart, because when you take it to the next day's lesson, when you look under the third category, how the trade helps people. Well, a wheelwright's trade helps people by making the wheels for a cart. So how are we going to get them to be able to, how would you get your students to be able to pull that without having the conversation about what a cart is? Because if we're just reading through that, we're going to read the word cart, but it might not bring out any specific context that a cart is a vehicle that was used back in the colonial times to transport things.
The last sentence, farmers use carts to collect and transport their produce. So I could see some of the kids making an inference based off of, some of them may have been to a market where they've seen a cart. Some of them may have seen a market on a cart in a market, like a farmer's market on television or something like that, or old movie, and they'll make that connection. Just looking at with the two classes, like you talked about earlier, I think that, because I didn't think about the whole cart thing, but I think that the kids in my first block, I know at least one of them, somebody would say in there, either they'll make the connection, and they'll share out, or they'll say, I don't know what a cart is. That's the way the conversation flows in that class. So they'll say, I'm not sure what a cart is. Even today we were reading something, little girl said, because they know I'll pull up a picture. Let me show you what such and such looks like. So she said, well, before we end, can you pull up a, what was it, something that we were talking about in the text. I can't remember now. Or, I don't know. But something. Because that's what we'll do. We'll pull up pictures if need be or whatever. So, that's where they are in their learning. They're a little bit more they have a little bit more accountability, they ownership rather of their learning. So, you know, with them, that might naturally come up in the conversation, whereas in the other class, I may or may not have to just put it out there like front